welcome back to Interjections. Inter keep picking up points, Juve keep dropping points, and we're smooth sailing as we pursue this 20th Scudetto. I'm your host Andrew. I've got Miko, Sterling, and Jay with me. Miko, what's up?
Yeah, doing great, thanks. Looking forward discussing yet another win and interesting Champions League encounter.
Jay, I'm surprised you're not at the Taylor Swift concert in Sydney tonight.
Apparently that shit's like $600 for VIP tickets, and that's not even like the, even near the top tier of tickets or packages available. One of my friends is taking his wife, and he was just complaining about how expensive it is. But yeah, I'm not a Swiftie, unfortunately, so here I am. Anyway, looking forward to breaking down the win and the week ahead, and also I can claim victory that I was right all along in saying that Milan are the real threat, not Juventus. So let's get into it.
I don't know if there are any threats, to be quite honest. Sterling, welcome back to the pod. Thanks for stepping up. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me back. And, Juventus keeps on dropping points. So I'm a happy guy right now. Jay, just so you know, I'm also not a Swiftie. So you're not alone there. And also now, Kanye West is sampling the Curve of Nord in his songs on his new album. So I think we have to be Team Kanye now.
Fair enough. I guess Irfan will have to remain the Taylor Swift contingent of this podcast.
I think Ye probably went with the Curve of Nord because they were the most racist fan group available. No, I'm kidding.
Anyway, he couldn't get with Lazio that day.
Yeah, Lazio were busy.
Lazio was busy.
Well, let's talk about Salernitana. I don't think this is going to be a long conversation. It was a smooth victory from the first half. We dominated them. We could have scored 4 or 5 goals in the first 15 minutes of the match. So I had to settle for 2. What was more curious was the lineup decisions. Inzaghi decided to go full throttle from the start. Pretty much rolled everyone out, minus the wingbacks. So, Jay, how do you feel about the lineup decision from Inzaghi? Are you fine with his approach of kill the game early, then rotate? Or did you want to see him try and take a more cautious approach against an easy opponent?
It's hard to say. On one hand, I was an advocate for playing all the shitters. At the same time, the way the game panned out, I don't want to say they wouldn't have handled it, but I thought Salernitana actually pressed really aggressively. Now, you can question the quality or coordination of their pressing, but they started with 3 kind of mobile forwards, or at least 3 mobile players pushing up quite high and quite aggressively. And, when people press you aggressively, everything is exponentially harder. You have less time on the ball. You have less. You have to hit your passes faster and harder, so it's harder to control them. On top of that, there's obviously less space available. So essentially, to pass your way out of a aggressive hard press, you need to be accurate, fast, control the ball as well. And I was extremely impressed at how we did that. We were so on the ball, both figuratively and literally in the first half hour. I think it might have been one of our best performances of the season. And we just looked so incredibly competent at doing that. Like, despite how hard they pressed us, like I said, it didn't really matter. We just hit the balls accurately through the small gaps with speed, and yet our control was excellent every time. We managed to kind of negate or evade their press relatively easily. And yeah, who knows? Maybe the second string players might have had a little bit more difficulty with it. So in the end, I guess it's one of those where I have to kind of just hold my hand up and say, I guess the end justifies the means. Maybe we could have brought them on a little bit earlier in the second half, considering I think at that point both teams had kind of, it was one of those where both teams have this unspoken understanding. Yeah, the game's over. You've won. We've lost. Let's just each take it easy from here on out. So the second half was extremely boring. So maybe Inzaghi could have brought the guys on a little bit earlier, but can't really complain, I guess. I will say that I don't want to, nitpick on negative things, but that chance that Barella had in like the 5th or 6th minute, that really annoyed me. Like, he's got Thuram to his left, completely open. It's like a 2 versus 0 situation. He's got all the time in the world to place a shot, and he goes for like this, full power, just smash, and obviously ended up hitting it, well, not that far away from the keeper, that the keeper was able to make like a kind of standing parry onto the crossbar. You got to score that, or if you don't score it, you need to make Thuram score it. And I think just having kind of watched a lot of Barella's, or kind of thought to myself a lot about Barella and his the way he plays and things in recent weeks, I thought there was a bit of a, I don't want to say like a point in my favor, but I felt that's the kind of thing that I always find with him. Like, what are you doing there? It reminded me of the end of that Verona game when he tried to square the ball to Sanchez instead of just slotting it into an empty net. I mean, just don't do that kind of shit. Like, grow up a little bit, be a little bit more sensible. I expect that from a guy who's apparently renewing for 7.5 million, and he's like our vice captain and, Bandiera. He's this generation Stankovic, and yet I find Stankovic to be infinitely more reliable in many ways. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't want to end on a sour note, and it was overall an excellent game, but that miss kind of annoyed me more than I thought it would. I just kept thinking about it after the game.
Yeah, I mean, it was a horrible miss. He had 6 different options and chose the wrong one.
Exactly, and he could have side-footed, and even that volley against Juventus that was perfectly set up by DiMarco, at that range, at that height, just side-foot it into the net, you know what I mean, on the volley. Instead, he goes for the full power, wind-up, horizontal kind of slashing kick, and it just ends up going straight into the, Szczesny's feet anyway. So, like, you know what I mean? Just imagine he does that against Atletico or something when we're like, 0-0 in the 90th minute or whatever. But you just got to, I don't know. I don't want to start I don't want to create yet another hill to die on, because I've got so many I can't keep track of them. But I'm slowly eyeing this Barella is not world class hill, and I think the Bellinghams, the De Bruynes, these guys score that shit without making a fuss about it, instead of Barella doing the opposite, which is to not score it and then make a fuss about it. So yeah.
I'm just looking at that goal, and he's like, 3-4 meters ahead of the defender and Thuram when he gets the ball. And I don't know how he should see Thuram suddenly, because Thuram, he sprinted there to be open, but at the moment when Barella has the ball, it's on the edge of the box. So I can't fault him for trying to shoot the ball, because Thuram is not even on the circle or the half circle of the box at that point when Barella has the ball in front of him, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna shoot now. You're not gonna look around at that point when you have nothing else but the goalie in front of you. So
I mean, surely they're talking, though, right? You would think that Thuram would be vocal and tell him, hey, I'm over here.
Yeah, maybe he was there, but I can't really fault Barella for trying that. I think that it's 5 minutes in the game, and it's already like that kind of a chance. So why not just try to score right from there?
Even if you're going to score, though, is that the best shot selection? Is that the best way to score when you're shooting? Just kind of like blast it at full power at the goalie's head. You know what I mean? Like, he can try to side foot it. He can try to dribble closer. He can, you know what I mean? It's the finishing, the coldness in front of goal. Barella was known for a long time for being kind of like a bit shit in front of goal. You know what I mean? And then he kind of scored a decent amount last season. and scored a handful the season before, but I still don't think is particularly great in front of goal.
Yeah, I think that the shot was it kind of bounced right before his shot, so it went a bit too high because of that. And of course, the direction was straight to the keeper, so that wasn't optimal. But yeah, can't fault him for not passing, but yeah, I could have maybe placed it on the corner.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm not mad at him for taking the shot, but just putting the laces through it and absolutely blasting it just gives me like 2022 Lautaro vibes. Where it's just like you just see red and you just hit the go button. Basically, I think that he could have easily slotted it to the right, just passed it into the net. Would have probably been more difficult for the goalkeeper to get down, especially because I think everyone was expecting him to pass the ball to thuram. I certainly was. I think he kind of caught the goalkeeper off guard, but it was so central that he was able to parry it onto the crossbar. And props to the referee for even seeing that. By the way, I thought that was going to be a goal kick, but the referee saw immediately that it was tipped there. But yeah, when it comes to Barella, he is a world class midfielder, but he is not a world class goal scoring midfielder. That's the vibes that I get from him. He does everything extremely well except score goals consistently. He's I almost want to compare him sometimes to like a Luka Modric, but to be fair, Luka Modric scores a decent amount, especially when he has a chance that he should take. He pretty much always takes that, but no one's going to confuse Barella for being like a Frank Lampard type of a guy, or even like to use a more modern example, a Jude Bellingham type of a guy, where every time he arrives in the box, he takes that chance. I mean, honestly, Frattesi is a better goal scoring midfielder than Barella is. I'm more confident of him arriving in a box and taking a chance than I am with Barella. It's just that I'm not confident in other parts of Frattesi's game that, with Barella, I think sometimes we take for granted because he is such a good all around player. I mean, he puts in the defensive work. He is so good in possession. He can spray a ball. He does have a killer pass at times, and he even has a little bit of creativity and imagination. So, look, he should be getting a renewal. There's no doubt about that. He's a player that we should be holding on to and building around. He's not a perfect player, that's for sure. There are parts of his game he needs to work out, but to be honest, I'm way more concerned with the disciplinary side of his game and the fact that he can't seem to go, 3 or 4 games without getting a yellow card for dissent than I am him missing the odd chance here or there because, there's just no perfect player out there.
I'm going to argue, just come back to this chance that he wouldn't do that against Atletico in our next match in that situation. But against Salernitana, 5 minutes in the game, there was the vibe that, okay, we're going to win this match no matter what. So I think that plays a part in his decision-making there, that he's just going to smash it there and see what's going to happen. But if it's Atletico, it's like, let's say the game is 0-0. I think he might do something differently there.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. I do believe that if we were in a higher stakes game, that the team probably just approaches it different overall. That's the one thing I would say negatively about this Salernitana game, because it's funny, we won 4-0, but this conversation obviously has been more skewed towards negative. I mean, that's just being a fan, right? But
the curse of having Jay on the podcast.
Yeah, it's curse is having Jay on the podcast. But yeah, I mean, we were wasteful in the first 15 minutes of this match. There was several chances. There's a big chance for thuram as well off of a Bastoni header that we missed. That's the one thing I will say with this team is that at times we still can be wasteful, and I don't want that to start to creep in because we've actually been fairly clinical. So I'll give these guys the benefit of the doubt. As Miko said, this was Salernitana. We were kind of lax from the word go in this match, and really we never had to get out of second gear, and that was still more than enough. I mean, once the first goal came, the second one came immediately, and the game was realistically over at that point. I would say that this match was probably the best argument that I've seen thus far for the 18-team league. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
there's no way that a team like Salernitana should realistically even be on the pitch with a team like Inter at the moment. You know, I'm actually in favor of the 18-team league. I have been, but I mean, man, when you see teams like Salernitana running around, you know, it's this is a match that if you took it off the schedule completely, I certainly wouldn't miss. I mean, it was a great watch as an Inter fan because I love to watch Inter play well, but it was a terrible watch as a football fan. That is the most one-sided match I have seen this entire year in any league. And I watch a decent amount of football and all these leagues. I have not seen a match as one-sided as this anywhere in Europe. So, you know, it is something that I think, you know, hopefully Serie can address one day. Obviously, they voted to stay at 20 teams instead of 18 teams because, hey, if you ask Salernitana if you what they're going to vote, or if you ask anybody who's middle of the table, they immediately think about, hey, what if I have a bad year and all of a sudden I have a worse chance of relegation? So I don't know when that's going to happen, if ever, but this was certainly, you know, one of those matches where you start to realize just the gulf in quality. I mean, these guys signed Jerome Boateng off the couch, and the guy didn't last 20 minutes. I mean, it's not a it's not a good look for the league overall, but you know, it kind of just is what it is. But yeah, Inter, to be fair, has dominated a lot of teams this year and will continue to dominate a lot of teams this year. But I mean, when you saw the stats from this game at the end of it, it was really a tough watch.
Yeah,
yeah, and,
completely
yeah,
agree.
yeah, and you can argue that okay, if the bottom, like the last place team plays poorly against the first place team, okay, that's usually what happens. But Salernitana has like 2 wins in the whole season, so they don't belong to Serie at all. It's just a wrong place for them.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the stats; they didn't have a shot on goal all game, and we talked about this a lot last podcast. I won't revisit entirely, but just there's a lack of quality at the bottom of the table that is evident when they play good teams, and no one would have missed anything if this fixture wasn't on the calendar.
Yeah. One interesting stat I saw that we had 18 corners, and like we talked maybe in the previous episode about the lack of threat from the corners, that I don't remember, did we have any proper connection
2
from the corners in this match? 2.
There was one very early one which Bastoni hit.
That one, yeah.
And then
it was the thuram chance after
Ochoa,
that, yeah.
and then thuram somehow missed the sitter, and then in the second half, De Vrij kind of hit it kind of centrally, and Ochoa had to save it. But yeah, I agree. We kept winning the headers too, but they were just like, you know, softly kind of sailing over the net. So
not good
I
enough.
thought the same. Exactly, I thought the same. I was like watching corner after corner after corner, going, we're never going to score from these.
Yeah, but yeah, actually it was 3-0 after the first half, so it was like over already by then. It was nice to see Dumfries getting the goal since he hadn't been playing.
Kind of boost that market value.
Much. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you guys have a man of the match for this one? I honestly, despite his miss, Barella's a good call, but I have to go with Lautaro just because the goal scoring pace he's on is ridiculous. I think he's at 20 goals now in the league. There's a realistic chance he gets to 30 if we keep playing him at the rate we're playing him. Like, I just can't say enough about this ridiculous season. So I'm curious if you guys agree with that or if you have a different man of the match.
Yeah, it was interesting to see that at least in the Twitter, Inter announced that Dumfries was the man of the match. I don't know, is it by the fans who voted or who votes it? But I'm not sure if Dumfries was the best. Maybe Augusto. Well, maybe Barella. But it was so one-sided that I don't know. It's hard to call one who's above the others.
I would give it to Carlos Augusto personally. I thought that he had a really good match down the left flank. I thought that he was overall better than Dumfries in this match. And to be honest, this was one of those matches where everyone was just so on the level. It was a really good team performance. It's really hard to just pick out one individual player, just to be honest, because we weren't stressed very much. But I would give it to Carlos Augusto. He did, set us up for the eventual breakthrough, which, is the hardest thing to get in these tough matches where the team will sit deep and invite pressure. It's all about getting that first goal, and he really laid it on the platter for thuram. So I would probably give it to him out of anybody. Lautaro, I thought, also had a good game, took his goal well. I wouldn't have started him in this match. To go back to the lineup stuff really quickly, I was okay with us starting most of the starters. I think that's the right mentality that Inzaghi wanted to send to the team of, hey, let's not overlook this match, especially because we do have an extra day rest on Atletico and they're not traveling. So, or excuse me, we're not traveling. So I was okay with that, but I probably would have rested Salernitana man personally, even though this is one of his favorite targets, because to me, he's just looked a little bit tired recently, understandably so, because we just can't rest any of our forwards ever. So it's just that's just how it is. Our starting forwards have to basically be available all the time. But yeah, no, good match overall from everybody, really.
Yeah, and to add on to that importance of getting the breakthrough, I was going to say I don't have a man of the match, but I have two people that I wanted to highlight for a moment. One is thuram. I think it's actually really, look, I don't want to start throwing wild accusations as per usual, but I think maybe look, the longer you go without scoring, the more nervy it gets. Although we've been excellent this season, we've been historically known for some mental kind of fragility, or at best mental ups and downs. And so for thuram to get that first goal, I think really opened the floodgates for everything else. I'm not saying Lautaro wouldn't have scored first or anything like that, but thuram stepped up, buried that goal, and then that made everything much easier. But to step up in the first place in itself is not always easy. And I really, really like the way he finished that goal. Part to what we were speaking about regarding Barella, thuram didn't swipe at it. Instead, he just opened his foot up and just stabbed it with his foot open and side-footed it into the net. It was just an excellent finish. It was reminiscent of another great finish from another player, another great player. I'm, of course, speaking about Rafael Leao, who scored a very, very similar goal in Milan's victory. I think, was it in the Champions League or something? I can't remember. Anyway, similar goal where basically someone cut it in from the left. The ball was running across Leao, and he just did exactly the same thing that thuram did. Opened his foot up, hit a nice downward kind of stabbing motion with his foot open, and then it just side foots beautifully into the net. And Koopmeiners had another pretty much identical finish, just from the right flank this time, and it sailed into the top corner. But it takes a lot of confidence to finish like that as well, And so for these guys to finish with that, or for thuram to finish in such a style so competently, is really encouraging to me. It shows that the guy has confidence and he has the technical ability to execute that as well. The other guy I wanted to highlight is Buchanan. I found it kind of hilarious that the Instagram account was, highlighting his step over and then falling over in the box, which was like a pretty weak penalty shout at best, but whatever. It was his one highlight of the game, I guess. But what I liked about Buchanan, or the Buchanan sub as a whole, was that he played on the left. That indicates a level of flexibility in the player, but also in the coach. And I didn't really see that happening. I thought that Buchanan was just going to be the nailed-on fourth choice right wing back, behind Dumfries, behind Damian, probably behind a fit Cuadrado as well. And then that he'd be kind of resigned to his fate in the way that Bissek is doomed to be like a second choice or maybe even third choice right centre back, because Inzaghi refuses to consider him on the left. But Buchanan played on the left, so that in itself is probably very, very. That in itself probably doubles his potential minutes for the next, 6 months or so, because if he's a viable option in two positions, by default he's going to be more of an option for the coach. And I really like, for once, we have something resembling like a modern kind of winger, very, very slightly, in that he can get the ball on the left, face the defender, and try to cut inwards towards goal. That's how, not to talk about Liao again, but you know what I mean. That's how a lot of these modern inverted wingers work. They cut to the byline. Mbappe, no, whatever. You get my point. Yeah, the modern wingers are very often inverted. Like Kvaratskhelia is inverted. Vinicius, whatever. And obviously Buchanan is not even fit to shine these guys' shoes so far. But we have a young, fast, and somewhat skillful flank player who can play on the left and then kind of cut inwards to the right and, curl in a ball or maybe go for a shot. That asset in itself, even if the quality itself is not amazing, I think that's a really important asset to have. So it was such a small thing, but I was really, really pleased to see, like I said, both the player and the coach having the ability to provide an option on the left flank.
Thuram, lautaro starting, it was, I was also a bit skeptical. Should they start? Should we just rest them? But on the other hand, it was good to have them both starting and then getting the goals also. So they keep the confidence. Confidence levels are up just for the Atletico match, and I like the Thuram, the finishing ability as well. That was a very, very nicely done goal. The Augusto cutback pass and then Thuram finishing with one touch. That was cool one. As for Buchanan, that was a great point about him being on the left. And when we look at the numbers, like count the players who can play where they can play, so it kind of fits better if he can play on the left as well, because we have Bastoni, Augusto, and DiMarco who play on the left, and then we kind of have nobody else apart from Acerbi, but he should be mainly for the middle center back role. So that kind of plays in the situation that if we can use Buchanan instead of DiMarco, and then Augusto can stunt Bastoni time to time, that works better for us because we have the right flank covered already. So I liked as well that he came in and he already showed this skill and speed he has. So yeah, was pleased to see him.
That right flank is really crowded right now, especially because I think Bisek kind of surprised us all. And obviously, you have Darmian over there, Pavard over there. All those guys really want to be playing right center back. And you had Dumfries and Juan Cuadrado does still exist. As far as I know, he's still an Inter player. We didn't cancel his contract. He'd probably be back for the last weeks of the season if he's back at all. But that right flank is a little bit busy. So yeah, if he can play on the left, it's probably better for us in the interim. However, long term, I think I'd much prefer to see him played on the right side. I think that having an inverted winger is very different from having an inverted wing back. To me, I don't know that he looked entirely comfortable on that left side. I mean, this is his first appearance, so I'm not sure that he would have looked entirely comfortable on the right side either. But, I thought it was a decent cameo. He's obviously, as mentioned, a very pacey player. There was one ball over the top from Barella that I just wish he could have taken into stride. He had kind of a poor first touch there. Not going to crucify him for that. Obviously, it's one of his first touches in an Inter jersey. So you hope that he'll get better. Another couple of touches where, he just passed the ball backwards and, one where he kind of got muscled off the ball. He's going to be a project player for us. I think that there's obviously a ton of potential there. There's a reason why the club identified him over a year ago as a player that they wanted to potentially bring into the club. I think Ausilio was in love with him, likes him as a player. So I think that long term, Inzaghi hopefully has a plan for him. I was surprised to see him play him on the left because Inzaghi almost never plays players out of position. He's almost inflexible to a fault at times. So I'll be interested to see if he lets him swap flanks, or if once he starts playing on the right, he only plays on the right, or if he only plays him on the left for the rest of this season. And I'll also be interested to see how much playing time he actually ends up with before the end of the season, because I think if we're all being honest with ourselves, we know it's probably not going to be too much. I see him getting essentially Asllani minutes, or maybe Bisek minutes, or maybe even less than that for the rest of the season. But either way, I'm happy he's here. I think that he can potentially be a dangerous player for us. Whether that's from the start or off the bench, we'll have to see. But it is nice to have some genuine pace in the team, because God knows we need it.
So it was nice winning yesterday, but I think the real story of the day was Juve drawing 2-2 against Verona. They were down twice in the game. Both times they answered with a goal. As Allegri put it after post-game, they were able to salvage an important point on the road, which they hadn't been able to do previously. So they've dropped points in 4 consecutive games, one against Inter, of course, but also against the likes of Udinese, Empoli, and Verona. They are in a complete free fall. And if Jay's favorite team wins tonight, Milan will actually jump to seconds in the table. So, Miko, put a fork in Juventus for me. Tell me it's all over.
Yeah, I think it's all over. I think the confidence in that team has been destroyed completely. Probably mostly by us winning them and showing their place. Of course, was it before our match, the Empoli, when they lost points to Empoli? I don't remember, but the the situation is that they can't win anymore. They have 2 points in the past 4 matches. Was it so? So it's like a totally terrible record. They need desperately some kind of a win streak now, and I don't know, is that gonna happen when looking at this schedule? There's gonna be Napoli. Well, Napoli is not great either, but that's another story. But there's gonna be Atalanta, Genoa, Lazio, Fiorentina, Torino. So it's not super easy for them from now on. So they really missed their chance to keep up with the interspace there. So I think regarding the second or third spot, the match between Juventus and Milan will be decisive at the end of April, I feel. Unless they keep dropping points like now, then it's over for them regarding the second spot. But that's just a detail, not too decisive in a sense of anything. Are you third or second? Doesn't matter too much. But
I think Allegri is so brave, leading a small provincial club with the highest wage bill in the league to a Champions League place. I think that foregoing the Conference League, as any true martyr would, I just have to give it up to them for the bravery that they showed this year, as the sheriff chasing after us robbers at the top of the league. No, I mean, in all seriousness, I think the wheels have finally come off for Allegri and Juventus here. As Andrew mentioned, they were down twice in this game, and it's particularly that second goal that they let up. They wouldn't let that goal up, 3 weeks ago. That showed to me that their heads have officially dropped, and they were lucky to get that second goal, by the way. Hellas gave up the ball in a really bad situation where they really didn't need to, and kind of led to an easy goal for Rabiot. But I think that at this point, this realistically is Inter's Scudetto to lose. We finally kind of have that gap in the table that I think our play has really demanded. But it just seemed like Juventus just wouldn't go away for whatever reason. And look, I'm not going to say that it's over. Crazier things have happened, certainly, especially with Pazza Inter. But we have to be honest with ourselves. If we don't win this Scudetto, it would be a massive collapse. It would be a collapse of epic proportion in terms of, even looking at Inzaghi as, is this guy the right guy for us? Or, is there something wrong mentally with this team? Because we are by far the best team in this league. We've beaten all of our direct competition. And I would say we beat them fairly comfortably as well. For us to drop more points than any of these teams that are left in the competition with us during this run-in, I have a hard time seeing it. Barring, shock injuries to key players, there's no reason that we shouldn't be able to really win this Scudetto with double digits. And, now I'm at the point where I'm thinking, okay, especially with Juventus having dropped points again yesterday, we really can start to think about resting players at strategic times during the league. I'm certainly not saying that you start coasting in the league and you're not going to rotate against Atalanta, for example. But I think that we can start to put an eye on the Champions League now, and start to think that, hey, if we can get past the tricky Atletico tie, there's not too many teams left in that competition that I'm really that worried about either. We're kind of in a weird spot right now in European football, and I'm sure we'll touch on that, so I won't go too deep into that right now. But yeah, I think that this is pretty much wrapped up as long as we do what we need to do in this run in here and don't take our eye off the ball.
Jay, I'll give you a chance to vouch for Milan coming and catching us from behind if you'd like the opportunity.
Just only thing I have to say to what Sterling mentioned was, about rotating strategically. I mean, what more or when is there a more strategic time than when you're playing at home against the 20th team in the league? It's like outright the easiest game of the season on paper. And if you don't rotate then when we don't have any easier games than that until the end of the season, literally. So that being said, I don't disagree in principle. We do need to kind of be clever about where we rotate. And my only concern is just unexpected injuries to key players.
Did you guys see this is actually Milan's, and I'm sure Jay's already well aware of this fact, but this is Milan's third best start to a season in the 3-point era. So they actually are having a pretty good season. It's just that Inter has just been so good this season. I mean, minus the obvious slip up against Sassuolo, which that happens every year, and that draw against Bologna. Really, I mean, we have been pretty much flawless this season. So it's not even that other teams are necessarily playing poorly. To piggyback off what Jay was saying, Milan actually has been in really good form recently. So they probably will end up leapfrogging Juventus, and I would love that again mentally for where Juventus is going to sit, because now they don't really need to be thinking about looking up at us. They need to think about battling for a second place with Milan. But this Milan team, if you actually watch the matches, they still let up a lot of goals, number one, but number two, they still have a really tough time controlling games. They're still very chaotic. I think that they have talent, obviously. Leao is a fantastic player. Hernandez is a fantastic player. Pulisic, I think, is an underrated good piece for them. And actually, Ruben Loftus-Cheek has been fantastic for them. That's probably been their biggest surprise of the season. So, when they're all fully fit, I mean, they are a good side. But, even the last match against Napoli, a Napoli team that's been dreadful, by the way, and just dropped points again yesterday. They had to score in the 90th minute against Genoa at home. So, but against Napoli, that should have been a draw. The Napoli had some big chances at the end of that match, and I was wondering how they didn't score. So, Milan's squeaking by, but you had to think that, I have a hard time seeing them putting the results together, the string of results that would be necessary to make up 10 points on us, and they still have to play us as well. I think that Inter's to lose.
Yeah, that was an excellent point. I was about to mention that while we can say that Juve had a great start of the season or first half of the season, but it was like they were there barely, and now it like dropped off the form. Just they couldn't keep the thing together anymore, and now they are dropping points all the time. But also Milan, like you said perfectly, that it's pretty chaotic how they play. And what I've been watching their matches, they're like they don't seem like a team who's gonna keep winning like they've been doing. What was it? 7 wins in the last 9 matches, or what was it? Anyway, I can't see them doing that like in the foreseeable future, because like you Sterling said, they keep leaking goals almost in every match, and Napoli they are in a terrible form, and they are like they've been absolutely terrible with Mazzari, and still somehow Napoli was, in my mind, they were a better team in that match, but I don't know how they couldn't score a goal against Milan. Milan wasn't good. It was played in their home ground, and I don't know. I just can't see Milan being a real threat to this Inter in this season, especially as they have these European games as well. They have at least 3 games left now that they won Rennes 3-0, so they're gonna go to the next stage in European Europe League. So they're gonna have these midweek matches as well.
Let's dive into the Atletico match. First knockout Champions League game of the fixture of the season. Sorry. The Atletico took the complete opposite approach as we did yesterday. They benched all their good players. Griezmann sat for the entire 90 minutes. DePaul started on the bench. And they had been in a little bit of a slump. They had dropped points in 3 matches in a row. I think one of them was a Copa game, but they dropped points in 3 consecutive matches. But they had a resounding 5-0 win yesterday. I turned on the match for a little bit, but it was honestly a bit of a snooze when you had Atletico. They were already up a couple goals at that point. They were doing their whole sit deep thing, and they just weren't playing much. They were scoring on the counter. But curious how you guys feel about this one from a confidence level standpoint. On one hand, we're playing the best football in Europe, you could argue, and there was no reason not to be confident. I mean, we're just playing so well. But I thought, Sterling, you had a really good point offline, which is we haven't knocked a good team out of the Champions League since 2011, probably. Like in one of these head-to-head knockout rounds. It was, against Bayern. Last year, we went through a comparably easier path forward when you've had some, Portuguese teams in Milan who no one's really afraid of. This is really our first crack in a while to knock out a team who's widely considered like European elite of the past 10, 15 years. So, obviously we all respect Simeone to some extent as a manager. So it's a tough balance between being optimistic about we're playing so well and just a little scared knowing, wow, the last time we were in this position was 15 years ago. So how do you guys feel?
The only thing I'm concerned about with Atletico is, look, I'll start by saying I think we played them off the pitch in terms of football. I've long derided Simeone, and I don't like it because, there's obviously the former Inter connection there, and kind of by default, look, when I don't have a dog in the race, you tend to kind of lean for the underdog, you know what I'm saying? So obviously the underdog, at least in the La Liga kind of hierarchy, is Atletico. Everyone knows, every Inter fan should by default hate Barcelona, and Real were quite disliked before Barcelona kind of made themselves ingracious to us in our treble season encounters and all that kind of thing. So yeah, like I kind of support Atletico. Oh, that's a massive overstatement. I guess I prefer Atletico to those two, but I found it really hard to support Simeone when I'm watching him and he's playing. You know, he's got something like 400 million worth of talent in the attacking department alone. He had at one stage Cunha, Angel Correa, Griezmann, João Felix, Lemar, and I can't remember who else. Maybe anyway, he had all these quite high level players, and they were just playing just the most disgusting, just dog shit, like Allegri terrorist football. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck this guy. I can't sympathize with him any longer when he plays this badly. That's a long kind of prelude to saying I think we played them off the park. But the one thing I'm afraid of is I think they're a lot meaner than us. And I think I can easily imagine their defenders, for example, kind of doing like a real nasty job on our forwards. We've seen how Bremer did a really good job of neutralizing Lautaro, for example, by just being really aggressive, kind of always in his back, stepping in, chasing him all up the pitch and stepping in quickly to any forward balls and disrupting that kind of hold-up play and laying off fast transition play that we really rely on. I can see their defenders doing that. Likewise, I can see the defenders honestly kind of winning a lot of attacking corners. You know, I think their best chance to score is some Griezmann trickery plus set pieces. And, you know, I saw us kind of get dominated in the air by fucking Dragusin from Genoa, you know what I mean? And to add to us not being much of a attacking threat from set pieces, or at least our centre-backs, I think that's part and parcel with them just not being the most aggressive type, you know? Someone like Samuel, Lucio, these guys were known for being aggressive, even Skriniar to an extent, right? But Bastoni doesn't play dirty. He's quite soft. Pavard is also not the most rugged and physical defender. Acerbi's wily, you know, he knows how to dabble in the dark arts, and he knows how to strategically foul and that kind of thing. But he's not like a Chiellini type brute either. No defender we have is particularly, you know, or above average in that regard, aggression and tenacity, I feel. Whereas I think that is like the bedrock of Atletico football. So that's the one thing that kind of gives me quite a bit of pause. I think they can just out-muscle, out-fight, and kind of like, you know, I can see them getting Barella riled up as well, you know what I mean? Playing a little bit dirty, kind of pissing him off, getting him in a place where he might get himself yellow carded, that kind of thing. So I think their wits, their gamesmanship, their tenacity, their aggression, their meanness is all probably a bit better than ours. It's a question of whether we can just outplay that. And I don't have an answer right now, but I like to think at home at least we can get a result. But I have trouble envisioning us scoring more than a goal or winning at a higher margin than 1-0.
Yeah, that's a good point about the dirtiness and the physicality, because it feels the matchup will be decided in the midfield and how our midfield is going to. Can we play in the midfield like we usually play? Can we outplay the opponent in the midfield, or what is our approach? Because we need to be pretty careful in this first match. We need to win this match. That's pretty certain that we absolutely need to have at least one goal win, preferably more. But we need to win this one because it's gonna be hell to try to win in the away match in 2 weeks, or is it 3 weeks? I don't know. I don't know. Bookies have set up us as slight favorites, but I think this is gonna be probably not this one, but the away match will be probably the hardest one in this season for us. I feel like the Sociedad matches, especially the away match, that was a tough one. Maybe the toughest one we had so far this season. But this is like probably a step up from that. So yeah, really interesting to see what is our approach to this home match because, as I said, we absolutely need to score at least one goal, but hopefully we're gonna go for more if we manage to score the leading goal, and I don't want to even imagine what's the situation if we concede in this match, so that Atletico can just defend, which they will probably do anyway, but like emphasize on defending if they go on lead. So let's hope we have some kind of plan to try to win that midfield battle, so that we can take use that fast transition play we usually have, and use our wings into attacks and so on.
Yeah, to piggyback on what Jay was saying earlier about us having a lot of nice guys at the back too, we also have to remember that we're probably going to be playing nice guy DeVry in the center of defense in this first leg here, because I believe Acerbi is still out, which is obviously a massive loss for us. They don't have Morata, who has been one of their best players this year. He's actually really been phenomenal. He's kind of turned that corner finally of being a guy who is famous for his struggles in front of goal, and missing some easy chances. He was kind of like a forward version of Barella, right, where he does everything perfectly. He's like a great all around player, but he just doesn't finish very consistently. He actually this season has taken a big step forward in terms of that. So him not being there is definitely a massive plus for us. If you would have asked me which teams I would have wanted to avoid in the round of 16, the two teams that probably worried me the most, it would have been the two teams from Madrid. Real Madrid, I think, obvious why they would be frightening to play against, primarily because of their individual talent in the front line and how good they are on the dribble with their speed and transition. However, Atletico, really for the opposite reason, I think that against them, we're going to be forced to make the game. So they're going to sit deep, especially in this first tie, and we're going to have to really create chances against them, similar to the Juventus game. And we have shown that that's probably the best way of getting at us. This Inter does know how to play all different types of styles. We can break down a low block. We can sit deep and hit you on the counter. However, when you look back at that Juventus game, I think that they had a pretty good chance with Vlahovic fairly early on in that match, where if he hits it first time, that could potentially be a goal, and then it's a completely different game. We're going to have to play against a team now that can sit deep, similar to how Juventus sat deep against us, but really has legitimate forward talent. I mean, as was mentioned previously, they have some really good strikers. They spent a lot of money on attacking talent in the last years here, and when you have Griezmann, and it's going to end up probably being Depay up there, those are two really good players who can certainly hurt you. So it's going to be really difficult, in my opinion. I think they won against, they played Las Palmas yesterday, and I was hoping that was going to be a tough match for them, but they ended up winning 5-0, I think, with 30% possession, something like that. It was something ridiculous. And I don't think they're going to certainly come to San Siro and do that, but I could easily see this being a match that honestly ends up in a 0-0 draw, or maybe a small win to Inter. But the onus is certainly on us. We need to attack them. We pretty much have to win this first leg. It would be extremely difficult to go to the Wanda Metropolitano and expect to get a win there, because their home form this season has really been incredible. So yeah, I'm a little nervy ahead of this one. I think that this is one of the worst matchups for us, out of the teams that are remaining in this competition. Because again, if we can get through this round of 16 against Atletico, I really like our chances to go deep and potentially even to a final again, because I think we match up pretty well against almost any other team that's left in this competition.
Yeah, I completely agree. If we're able to overcome this obstacle, the only team I'm honestly super worried about is Madrid. But let's not.
Arsenal.
No, I'm not worried about Arsenal in the Champions League.
I respect Arsenal. I wouldn't want to play them today. I mean, they're in really good form right now.
I just can't. I can't. I understand. There's the
Milan of England.
There's because they're lovable and everyone just is obsessed with the quality of the team.
Exactly. The underdogs playing young, brave football, led by a handsome, tactical revolutionary like Arteta. It's just intolerable.
What is Milan?
Sounds just like Stefano Pioli.
Exactly.
Milan has nothing got to do with any of what you just said.
All right, I will save the Arsenal bashing for when we draw them in the next round, hopefully. So the only other points I wanted to hit on is our absolutely horrendous record against Spanish teams, which I like to bring up frequently in this podcast. We do not play well against Spanish sides. We do not get results against Spanish sides very often. Couldn't tell you. Well, actually, I can, because it's 2010, the last time we successfully knocked a Spanish team out of one of these competitions head-to-head. Like, we don't do well against them.
We beat Getafe in the Europa League under Conte, but yeah, to your point.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So I wanted to bring that up. And then second, Sterling mentioned it. I do think the Acerbi injury is one. I'd much rather have him starting this type of game. Hopefully he's back for the away fixture, if nothing else, because, I think just having that kind of calming presence in a road, words I can't believe I'm uttering, but having that calming presence in an away fixture will be critical for us, because if we go in there with a 1-0 lead, we're going to have to do some defending. So we can do some predictions if you guys want. Maybe Miko, if you want to start us off.
I want to be optimistic as always, so I'm going to go with 1-0 win. We're going to find that goal somewhere and go to the second match with a 1-goal lead. And I'm going to give it to Thuram. He's on a good streak now, so he's going to continue that.
I appreciate that we're on episode 30. We've probably predicted around 30 matches between all the episodes, and I'm pretty sure Miko has predicted us to drop points once. And I love it.
yeah, and we dropped points in that round. Was it so?
That's true. That is true.
Against Genoa.
That's right.
Of the 30 predictions, how many times have I predicted us to drop points?
Probably about 50% of the time.
Look, I will refrain from predicting a result. I will only predict that it's going to be a disgusting match, and my disdain for Atletico will only be, only increase following that horrendous 90 minutes. I will say, kind of as I alluded to earlier, it really is just one of those, irresistible force. That's us playing against an immovable object, and these things only go one of two ways. Either the force is too much for the object, or the object is, stands up to the force. And I don't see like Atletico blowing us out of the water, for example. God forbid. But yeah, I can't see any way this goes other than we're really frustrated by this stubborn, dirty, time-wasting, hard tackling, riding up, shit-talking Atletico team, or we manage to, sneak a goal and get like a narrow win. That's the only way I see this going. One of two ways.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be a ugly encounter, in my opinion. Going to be extremely tight. Think back to obviously the matches that we had with Sociedad in the group stage and the way that they kind of pressured us and really kind of suffocated us at times. I think we'll have probably a little bit more time on the ball against Atletico, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to create more chances. I like Miko's prediction of a 1-0, but just not to copy him, I'm going to go for a 2-0. I'm going to be wildly optimistic, just because this Inter actually this year has really surprised me. We've seemed a lot more mature, and it seems like every big test that we've had thus far, we've passed with flying colors. So I'm going to say that that continues into the Champions League against an extremely tough opponent, and that we get a 2-0. Because one thing I must say about Atletico, because we have kind of waxed lyrical about how dangerous they can be, but defensively this year, if you look at their statistics, they're not really that great. They're not an elite defensive team like they were, 4 or 5 years ago when it seemed like they were always in the tail end of the Champions League, and the only team that could actually beat them was Real Madrid. They're not that team anymore. They are a different side. They're kind of in a weird limbo where they're in the balance. They're kind of in the middle between being a defensive team and wanting to be an offensive team, but Simeone doesn't really know how to set up an offensive team. So, they do have a little bit of an identity crisis, although probably a slight one. So I'm going to say a 2-0, that we're going to get the job done at home, and then it's going to be a very tough second leg, but, hopefully Inter will pull it out.
I'm torn on this one. As just think through it. So Inzaghi has a great cup track record. I don't know if you guys know this. He once beat Liverpool at Anfield, but he has a good record in knockout cup matches, and we're just playing so well. On the other, you've got this really stubborn Atletico side who went undefeated through their group stage. Lazio did take a point from them when Lazio was at home to them. They managed to eke out a draw. I don't know if I'm going to read too much into that, but once again, we're playing so well that I can't pick against us, but I can't see us scoring more than 2 goals in this game, and really that's probably the most optimistic scenario. So I'll go with a 1-0 win and give me a goal from Mkhitaryan.
They have a player named Riquelme. You know what happened the last time we played against Riquelme. Highlight reels for the next 20 years is what happened. Every now and again on Instagram, hashtag TBT Throwback Thursday. Remember when Riquelme did this against Inter? I'm like, yeah, I remember very fucking well. Thanks very much.
Someone in the lead up to the game against Salernitana, someone made a post about this is going to be Candreva against Inter this weekend, and it was just a Ronaldinho highlight tape of him making absurd dribbles, scoring golazzos.
Yeah, I saw that one. Let's wait and see. I am optimistic despite my prediction. I just I try to err on the rational side of things, and Sterling made a really good point that this Atletico is kind of neither here nor there. It's not the defensive monster it used to be, for sure. At the same time, I don't think they've lost that. I still think they have some of that kind of dog in them. They still have that identity of, I think it was Simeone. What was it, Conte? I can't remember, but I think Simeone said, like, effort is not optional for him, and all his guys run like crazy. That's one thing that they have retained, like the work rate, the aggression, the fight is still all there. Whether they've sorted themselves out tactically, because they're playing like 3 at the back these days, whereas they used to play
4-4-2.
Yeah, 4-4-2 flat. But these days it looks like they're playing 3-5-2, sometimes even like 5-3-2. So, I think, just to add to that quickly, I think when you have 2 teams that play 3 at the back, in my experience, I think the one that plays better generally tends to win. I think there are some formations that are natural counters to, one another. Generally, you'd say that like a a 4-3-3 is naturally quite strong against the 3-5-2 because you have wingers, in behind the wing backs and all that kind of stuff. But I think when you have two teams playing 3-5-2, that one plays defensive, one plays more expansive, the expansive one, I think, has the odds in their favor. So, yeah, look, I would love it if we just blew them out of the water and showed them how to, play a modern, attractive 3-5-2 kind of shape. But like I said, I just don't want to underestimate them because they can hurt us on the counter, and they have that dog in them. So I'm cautiously optimistic.
I don't know if I brought this up on the pod before. I don't think I have, but I always consider. Remember it was the European Super Cup after the treble season. It was like the Champions League winner against the Europa League winner, and it was us playing Atletico in Monaco.
Yep.
This is the unofficial kickoff of the Banta era to me. Because I remember this was our first match with Rafa Benitez, and I'm like, what the fuck am I watching? It's like
Treble hero Milito looked shaky all game and then missed a penalty. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, did Aguero score for Atletico? I can't remember exactly how the game went, but I just remember watching this game. We did not put up a fight at all. We rolled out the exact same lineup as the treble winning team in the final, I believe, and it was just, you knew you were in for a long season, and it turned into a long decade.
Yeah, Aguero scored.
Yeah,
and 83rd minute.
All right, so before we wrap up, we're not going to be recording before the next Serie match against Lecce, so we do want to hit on this briefly. We always talk about it's hard to preview a match after a match, but just we can talk about this quickly. So Lecce are surprisingly okay. This is a firmly mid-table team. I believe we beat them 2-0 earlier this season, if memory serves correct. I don't know. So just terms of recent form for them, they've lost to Torino, they've lost to Bologna, but they did manage to beat Fiorentina earlier. They're definitely more dangerous at home than they are away. Let me see here. I don't know. I have not watched any Lecce games recently, to be completely honest with you all. I don't know. Miko, have you watched any Lecce games recently?
Not that much. I remember the Fiorentina match when they won it in the end, but I think, typically for Inter, the matches after the midweek Euro matches have been a bit tougher ones, and especially now that we have to travel all the way to Lecce to face Lecce. I think it's gonna be not an easy one, a bit of a necessary routine match.
A budgeted draw.
Hopefully not. I'm just thinking how we're gonna use the players, because it's Tuesday. The match against Atletico is on Tuesday, and this Lecce match is on the evening, Sunday evening. So
and then you have Atalanta on Wednesday following.
Yeah, exactly. So there's not gonna be a midweek without a match in 2 weeks after this. Like after now,
we know
three midweek matches now.
We know Arnautovic and Sanchez will start after DePaul breaks both thuram and Lautaro's ankles. I guess so. I think there'll be a toll taken from Atletico. I think it'll be like we all have kind of agreed on. I think it'll be a really tough match. So I can see, if there's a time to drop if there's ever a time that teams drop points, it's after a difficult European encounter.
Yeah. So
we got to be extremely alert. The only thing I'll say is let's try to get away with some rotation, because it's not optional against Atalanta. They're in extremely good form right now. So obviously Atalanta on Wednesday is a more difficult game than Lecce on Sunday. So even following the Champions League match, so it won't be an absolute disaster to draw at Lecce, to be completely honest, as much as I hate saying that. But I think I have this weird feeling Frattesi is going to play against Atletico. I have a feeling he's going to start for some reason.
Start?
Yeah. That's my hot take for the week. I think Frattesi will start against Atletico. Don't ask me why. Don't at me. Don't ask me for any evidence because I don't have any. It's just a gut feeling, but I reckon he's going to start. And if that's the case, then we can obviously play Barella against Lecce. Or start Barella, I mean. So if we can sneak in some tiny bit of rotation here and there, then I wouldn't be against it, especially considering we have Atlanta straight after Lecce. So I just want to see the team come back in one piece against Atletico. And for us to put out a, maybe like a kind of 60-40, maybe a 70-30 kind of team in terms of like starters to backup ratio. And I think it should be enough for us to win, I could imagine this going the same way as like the Empoli game where we won 1-0, just one of these kind of typical tough away games where you got to really grind for a result. So maybe like Fiorentina as well. So I can see it going that way. So I'm going to jump the gun here and say we win 2-1 with goals coming from Buchanan. No, I'm kidding.
Come on now.
With actually, you know what? Fuck it. I won't predict scorers. That'll be ridiculous. But I can see this going that way. Just a tough. It's like textbook. You go to a tough away ground. Lecce are. I always say this, but Lecce are one of the most supported teams outside of the top 6. In terms of average attendance. So it's a difficult ground to go to. We have drop points there. I think even in Conte's season. So
yeah, we draw them
exactly. So it's not an easy ground.
Hometown match for Conte too.
Yeah, exactly.
Just say what you're not brave enough to say. Sanchez brace.
All I'm saying is, like I said, it's a textbook hostile away game at a small team after a difficult European match. That's the definition of a trap game. But I think we'll overcome it, and that's why I'm saying 2-1.
Yeah, I agree with Jay spot on there. That's exactly that last sentence that you had there was exactly what I was going to say in terms of going on the road after a Champions League match against a team that is in the bottom half of the table. I don't know what the pitch looks like in Lecce, but I feel like this is when we always pull up to something that looks like swamp grass, and the ball is rolling extremely slow, and it's like the pitch feels very tight. And it's just one of those things where all of a sudden it seems like we can't play football on that pitch for some reason, but they play perfect football and turn into prime Barcelona with small triangles, and they're just pulling us out of position. But that was the old Inter. I don't think that that's going to be the case this time. We've been so good on the road this year. I do think that we'll find a way through this match. I think it's probably going to be a tight one. Corto Muso. I think that we'll end up getting a 1-0 victory here is going to be my prediction. Lecce hasn't been terrible this year. They have 24 points with 25 matches played. They're in 13th place right now. I'd say that they're probably I want to say that they're safe from relegation, most likely here. The 18th place team has 20 points, so they're only about 4 points ahead. And then there's a pretty big gap between them and Genoa, who are in 12th with 30 points. So they are actually closer to the drop than they are to the team that's ahead of them in standings. So it is a team that we should be taking care of. I would think that we will see some rotation in this match. I, unlike Jay, do not think that Frattesi is going to start against Atletico. That would be ridiculous. I see no way that Inzaghi decides to rest either Barella or Mkhitaryan in that match, especially not Mkhitaryan. He won't rest him ever. So I think that we will probably see Frattesi come into the Lecce match, and I would expect that we may even start Arnautovic. The question would be who it's going to be for. Is it going to be Lautaro or Thuram? And then maybe we'll see Augusto maybe come into this as well. And hopefully Iturbi will be back and fit so we can give him some minutes. And then, we have a really tough match against Atalanta. It'll be at home, which is great. But they have been flying, and they won their match yesterday against Sassuolo 3-0. But it seems like they're just dropping big numbers on everybody right now. And all of a sudden, Charles de Ketelaere is the world-class player that Milan thought that they signed. I don't know if that's just that crazy Atlanta juice that they give the players over there, or if he really is coming into his own. But either way, all of a sudden, they look like a real threat. So it's actually funny because before Juventus just decided to go on a slide and start dropping points, I was hesitant to say that Inter kind of had this in the bag until we beat Lecce and Atalanta. That's when I was going to be willing to basically say it's ours to lose. Now with Juventus sliding, obviously it gives us a little bit more room for error, but I would still say that we need to take care of a team like Lecce, and then if we can do that after hopefully getting a good result against Atletico, then the Atalanta game at that point, if even if we drop points there, the goal is in that game just not to lose. A draw would be perfectly fine there in terms of calculation. So yeah, all that to say, I think that we will find a way to get the victory on the road against Lecce, and I'm going to go with a 1-0.
One interesting detail, by the way, Atalanta is playing against Milan right before they play against us in the midweek match. So it's going to be next weekend when they play.
So they'll rest all their starters from Milan and play their A team against us?
Yes.
No, actually they need to win Milan, and then we hand them the 3 points because we can afford it, and they try to catch Milan in the standings. I'm up for that. But yeah, I think my prediction, I'm going to go with... We win by 2 goals, 2-0 win. I'm gonna stay positive that we're gonna grind these tough away results like we've been doing this season so well. So yeah, 2-0 win.
I'm gonna take a 0-0 draw. This just feels like a scheduled point drop, and as good as I think we are, we're not going to be perfect for the rest of the season. So this just feels like a scheduled opportunity to lose some points. Hopefully we do rotate a bit. I'd like to see Arnautovic and Sanchez maybe even start, keep the team fresh. I'm much more worried about the Atalanta game. So honestly, I'd be just the way that things are going in the table right now, I'd honestly be pretty content with a point against Lecce, provided we recover from that and beat Atalanta. Also, I just want to end this podcast by saying that Bologna managed to turn it around and came back from 1-0 down to beat Lazio. So Thiago Motta,
Xerxes goal for the winner as well,
and Fabian assist for the equalizer. Pretty good.
Love it. And he had a yellow card in the first half, so he would have been subbed off by Inzaghi probably around the 30th minute. So that's fantastic.
Wouldn't have made it back after the halftime break. So yeah. Bologna are now tied with Atalanta on the table for the 4th Champions League spots. Atalanta have a game in hand, but man, full credit to Thiago Motta.
Hey, I do have a quick question. Maybe we can end on this. And Miko and I were kind of having this discussion on the forum, but all of a sudden, I think ESPN FC is talking about Inter more. Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher were talking about Inter and their chances to potentially win a Champions League. So it does seem like all of a sudden we are starting to pique some interest amongst neutrals and even maybe casuals. So my question to you guys is: do you guys think that the opinions of casual fans or neutrals do they matter ultimately to you, or I guess ultimately to the club?
I do. I mean, I do. So you need to build up a following in Europe. You need to have people want to put their eyeballs on you if you want to build up the brand. And so much of the sport right now isn't about necessarily results as it is about a style of play and marketing ability and superstars. And look, we're a club in horrendous financial shape. We're pretty much guaranteed to have a net loss every season. And the way to dig out of this hole is twofold. One is to get a stadium, which I think we'll all agree is nowhere close to happening. But the other one is to get people want to watch our matches, get people want to watch the league. And we play a really attractive style. And I think if we can turn a few people onto that and get people watching our games, it would go a long way towards the league getting a bigger television deal. And if we have a bigger television deal and we have more money, then, hey, maybe the Zhang family won't have to liquidate the club. But in all seriousness, it matters to an extent what the external view of the club is. You need to have this positive perception, and we deserve a positive perception, to be quite honest. We're running away with this league title. We're playing entertaining football. We're playing attacking football. When you look around Europe, you'd be hard pressed to find a more impressive season than the season we are in the midst of. So,
Leverkusen.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good call. But even to Sterling's point earlier, Bayern is probably I guess we can say the same thing about Juventus, but this is, the least impressive version of Bayern in a while. But still, my point remains, we've been just simply dominant, and we deserve Champions League attention, and we deserve to be a team mentioned as a Champions League favorites. When I see a team like Arsenal or PSG favored over us, I can't wrap my head around that. The only rationalization I would have for something like that is they have an easier Champions League draw than us, because we have what is probably the toughest or one of the toughest round of 16 matches among the favorites. But beyond that, I mean, I can't tell you a good reason why we're not going to go far in this tournament.
It is impossible to defeat the colossus that is the Anglosphere. The fact that Arsenal, despite having won fucking jack shit for the last 20 years, is like the second most valuable squad in the world in terms of like transfer market value, is an absolute disgrace. But that's the way the market works, and we can sit here and be tough guys about, I don't care what the casuals think, but that's a very stoicism kind of isolatory way of thinking, very insular way of thinking, and football is not an insular business. Football is global. Business is global, and we need more fans, more eyes, more money from every corner of the world if we're to end this horrendous cycle of having to sell a player for 50 million every year like clockwork and try to replace them with some 35-year-old and just hope that they defy the odds and play out of their skin. Our luck has already turned this season, and that's evidenced by Cuadrado, Sanchez, and Arnautovic, all expensive failures, and they're kind of reverting to the mean. They're doing the reverse, a Cherby Mkhitaryan kind of thing. So I don't think we can just rely on some Marotta Limone magic forever. Having said that, regrettably, I don't think it's enough. I don't think us going far in the Champions League is really enough to start bringing in money that actually makes a difference. I think that happens at like a institutional level, and not to end on a downer, aka the J signature, but I don't trust the institution to really provide that for us either. Everyone knows that FIGC and Lega Serie A are just managed by the most backwards, corrupt dinosaurs imaginable. They will routinely reject some 900 million deal only to settle for some shit like $820 million deal. You know what I mean? And then there's all the bureaucracy around stadiums in Italy. It's just, it's hard to analyze that with an objective kind of frame point, and then not come to the conclusion that it's borderline insurmountable. I have trouble seeing, and even Juventus, like for all their marketability and everything, they've been bailed out more times than you can count by Exor. Infuriatingly, Milan have locked upon some financial luck. So with some bullshit angel investors kind of like absorbing their debt. But again, that's an exception. So yeah, like I said, not to be a downer, but it's really hard to just see us making tons of money that actually makes a real difference to our financial standing, purely because we happen to, go to the quarterfinals or semifinals of the Champions League, for the next few years. Like, I don't think it makes that much difference. Maybe we'll reduce our losses by about 40 million every season until we finally get to a point where our losses are only, quote unquote, 50 million a year or something, in which case it becomes kind of like operable. Then there's a question about debt. So yeah, hard to really be optimistic on that front, I'm afraid.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably realistic there. It's hard to be the best kept secret and also have great revenue. I think that, when it comes down to, the casual fans and whether or not they do play a role in your overall success, I have to say that they definitely do. Realistically, I don't think that we're going to catch up with a Chelsea or an Arsenal or a Manchester United or one of these clubs that has a really big following behind them, either internationally or, here in the States, especially the EPL is just so dominant. But, it took them 30 years of good marketing to get to where they are. Trying to catch up to that is going to be really, really difficult, even with a couple of good Champions League runs. I would say that that's probably the fastest way for us to become relevant, is on the pitch success in a competition where it's hard to deny how good Inter is, because that's the reality of it, is that Serie A is just not respected, by the casual fan, right? So we can go over here and we could win Serie A by 20 points with a goal difference of 100, and in reality, a lot of people will just say, "Well, yeah, but that's a farmers league." Whether that's true or not, I think we all know that it's not true. But in the casual fan's mind, that is the case, right? So but doing it in the Champions League, I think, does make a tremendous difference in terms of how we are viewed. And if you do it consistently over a long enough period, then yeah, I think that is a way for you to potentially raise the level of the club. Because realistically, that's the only thing. That's really the only difference in marketability between us and Milan, is that Milan has more Champions Leagues, so more people know about them because they had some teams that, it's been almost 20 years now, but they had some really dominant teams 20 years ago, that were really fun for people to watch. And so, to this day, they still have some casuals that have kind of stuck with them. I think, for a team like us right now, when you see what that Champions League final run did for us last year, not just in terms of, casual fans and things of that nature, but also in terms of the money that comes from the competition. It basically allowed us to keep a lot of our big pieces. We didn't have to go sell a Lukaku or a Hakimi type of piece last year, and I'm assuming that's primarily because of that Champions League run and the money that came with it. So obviously that's a huge factor for us as well. But getting it back to the casual fans, again, I don't think that we'll ever be a Real Madrid type of a draw or a Barcelona type of draw, but who knows? Maybe we can become the hipster team, the same way that Dortmund kind of became for a lot of people when they had Klopp there and they made their Champions League runs just because of the cool football that they play. And there's always those fans who don't want to root for the absolute biggest club. They want kind of a offshoot hipsterish team, and maybe we could become that for a lot of fans if we continue to play really good football. But I'm curious to hear your take, Miko, because you were kind of the one on the forum that was saying that you didn't think the casual fans mattered as much.
Yeah. Long conversation, but yeah, let's go back to the original question. Yes, in the long term, they matter, and you all kind of argumented for that, and I agree. But that was more for the long term because of the branding and so on. So I'm not gonna touch on that like more. But my take is more that I would want to see us focusing always on the Scudetto race, like never neglect that, and always like do it for the fans. And I would say I wouldn't say real fans, but the fans, the local fans in Italy, because they, in the end, they will appreciate always the Scudetto or over anything else. And we can kind of see that when the stadiums are like filled in the Champions League matches, they are not sold out, but in the Serie, in the league matches, they are always sold out against Salernitana, against Frosinone, and so on, or almost sold out. It's always over 70, is it 73,000 this season, the average?
Well, Champions League matches are also midweek. You have to factor that in.
Well, yeah, okay, that's a good point.
I think what Miko is saying is that the Italian fans are more appreciative than the Australian Inter fans.
Exactly. But my point is that in my mind, we should always focus on the league, and Champions League is important, especially for the marketing point of view, but also that kind of prestige and showing you're a big club, so you need to be part of the best clubs in the continent. So of course it matters, and the players appreciate it as well. So of course it's important, but in the end, when it comes to any kind of decisions the club is making, it's the coach who he's doing the decisions, who's gonna play, where are we gonna put our focus. Like we've seen this season, we haven't put the full focus on the Champions League because of we focus purely on the Scudetto race. We had this ridiculous starting lineup against Benfica. And
we need more sponsorship. That's the biggest thing. We can't continue to sign these dog shit deals from like Nike, like 8 years at like 20 million or some garbage. Paramount is like what, at the end of the day, it's 25 million or something. Like Milan is getting 30 million per year base guaranteed, and then like 60 million base guaranteed or something like that. Something ridiculous.
Yeah, but that's irrelevant. That's irrelevant.
We need to turn that. We need to turn the success in Europe into dollar signs, and I don't think we've done a great deal of doing that now. And unfortunately, it's going to be hard to do that, even if we make it to the Champions League final for the next 5 years, because we're locked into these fucking 8-year contracts with Nike. Like, where's the money coming from, other than just competition money? That's the least reliable way of making money, is competition money. The way you got to make money is guaranteed contracts with reliable companies, and not fucking Shintercoin or Socios or whatever digital shits. You know what I mean? Like,
we don't need all that money. We've done.
We need, how do we need money?
We're 800 in debt.
We're in 800 in debt.
Money.
We made a
look where we are.
Yeah.
Look where we are now, and we have like sold players left and right like 3 seasons in a row. And look where we are. We were in a Champions League final. We are going to our second star now, and I'm not worried that we need to maximize our profits as soon as possible.
You're not worried Zhang is going to lose possession of the club or refinance the club at such an astronomical rate that we're forced to tear this thing down to the stilts?
I have no idea what's going to happen with the ownership, but it's not something we can like speculate too much, because we don't have enough visibility to. In my mind, we don't have enough visibility to speculate any numbers regarding how much it's going to cost to the club, regarding who's going to own it next season or after this season.
Sure, but more money is better than less money when you are in this dire financial situation.
Yeah, but this started from the argument that, at least in my mind, it was the argument that how much we should try to get the casual fans to like us or something that.
Look, we took a tangent.
Focus on the Champions League.
Any kind of, attention. I mean, everyone wants more eyes, more customers, more revenue. That's just like,
of course,
the most obvious thing for anyone. But again, yeah, we took a tangent. But all I'm saying here is, footballing wise, we've done excellently with the resources we have. Let's try and turn that into more concrete revenue, because I just don't believe that competition revenue and player selling is really sustainable in the long run. Teams like, the English teams are not really they're funding their future foundations based on player sales and guaranteed success in the Champions League. You know what I mean? Everything is built up on sponsorship and ticket sales and revenue, and these kind of more reliable revenue streams, as opposed to flaky sponsorships and hoping we go to the Champions League final so we get 100 million instead of 20 million or something like that. And that being the difference between keeping or selling a key player and then replacing him with a guy who is going to be arguably low cost, or someone who may or may not work out. Like I said, I love these guys like Acerbian, Darmian, and Mkhitaryan. They've performed out of their skins, but we've seen, like I said, this season we're not always going to get those wins. Like Sanchez is a flop, Arnautovic is a flop, Quadrado is a colossal flop. What happens if Taremi is a flop next season? Maybe he'll do a Mkhitaryan and play at an excellent level into his 30s. Maybe he won't. But it's the gamble you have to take with these 30-plus-year-old free agents. And why are we limited to these 30-plus-year-old free agents? Because of the financial situation. And the way to address the financial situation, like I said, is to have reliable revenue streams. And the way we do that is to convert the attention that we get from better performance, especially in Europe, to more just having more bargaining power at the negotiation table when it comes to these sponsors. But again, just to round up my point at least, I fear that it's just not enough in the scope of the Italian economy, in the Italian football economy, when, like I said, the institutions are just so, they make it, the wealth generating mechanisms or the engines of the Italian football are just dog shit. That's what I come down to. No matter how hard we do, we're always going to be no matter how hard we try, no matter how well we do, we're always going to be against those colossal forces. Maya Salah playing bullshit hardball with the stadium, the government reversing the growth decree and all this kind of stuff. It's all just against us.
Yeah, I have a really tough time hearing, that we don't need money because of the way that we've performed in recent years. That's really tough for me to reconcile. I mean, especially when this club is so highly leveraged that it's, essentially owned by a bank. I mean, we had to sell the best right wing back in the world a couple of years ago because we needed money. We had to sell our star striker a couple of years ago because we needed money. We couldn't sign Cancelo to a long-term contract, even though we had Champions League football. This team and as Jay mentioned, also Serie A as a whole, financially is in the hole and needs really any type of financial support that it can get at this point. So I couldn't agree more with Jay's point. I think that while we do have these eyeballs and while we are performing well, we need to try and capitalize on it the best that we can, because we have to be honest, guys, we've been extremely lucky to be as successful as we are. And, part of it's luck and obviously part of it's skill. I mean, we have one of the best management teams, I think, anywhere in world football. Morata and Ausilio have done a fantastic job, especially with these veteran signings. It's really only the most recent veteran signings that have actually failed. Before that, credit to Inzaghi as well. But, we've done really well, and we've had a really fantastic streak of essentially not having any flop signings. It's really just this year that we're starting to have some of these older guys start to flop for us. But the thing is, what money gives you is it gives you a runway to where, you don't have to, your margin of error increases because you don't have to be right every single time. Right now, we have to be right almost every single time. Whereas realistically, some of these other clubs, they don't. They can sign a kid who's 22 years old for 50 million euro, and if he doesn't work out in 2 years, they take the hit and they move on. We just can't do that. Every single player that we sign essentially has to be a hit for us, and that's the reason why to this day we're still all mad about 8 to 10 million euros, I think, with bonuses that we spent on Arnautovic. I mean, do you think that these fans of other clubs that are in good financial positions are worried about 8 million euros? They probably spent that on the youth team player. I mean, but for us, we were like, oh man, those 8 million euros, oh man, we're never going to get those back. And it's because of the financial situation that our club is in. So that's just something I wanted to touch on today. I know that we're running a little bit long, and it's probably about 1 a.m. for Jay right now. But this is an interesting conversation and something I think we should maybe continue to discuss in the future. But yeah, we need money. We need money for sure.
Yeah, I want to quickly touch on that. Of course, it was the exaggeration that we don't need money. Of course, we need money, but My point was we don't need all that money so desperately that we need to like maximize all the profits from the Champions League, so that we put the max focus on that and neglect the Scudetto. That was basically my point from the beginning, that we should never forget the Scudetto and just concentrate on making the maximum amount of profits from any competition we have.
Agreed.
Like the upcoming Club World Cup, it's gonna be in 2025 summer. I don't want to see us neglecting the Scudetto race just to save anything for that tournament. And I'm positive we do not gonna do that, and the coach won't give a F about that tournament. That's my feeling at the moment. But yeah, that was the point. So I don't see us disagreeing too much here, but just that the full focus should be always on the Scudetto in my books. But yeah, maybe we can wrap this up.
All right. Yes, we've run very long, but just what happens, we get to catch up with Sterling for the first time in a while. So thanks again, Sterling, for hopping on. Appreciate the help.
Absolutely. Anytime, guys.
And thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll catch you next week, hopefully after a couple wins over at Atletico and Lecce.
Goodbye.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah.